A recent investigation by BreachMedia.ca found that Trudeau's Liberal government manufactured a narrative around Defund the Police to make it appear less popular than it actually is. Now, there is a bit of a twist at the end of this story. I will get to that. But this may come as a shock to especially conservative viewers, as they may think that Trudeau wants to defund the police. If you think that, you should reassess where you're getting your information from, because that is not the case. In fact, Trudeau is incredibly conservative on this issue, which is why they would conduct a poll like this to try and manipulate the story around defund the police. So first, there is some misconceptions around what defund the police actually means. It does not mean abolish the police. Abolish the police is a separate thing. Defund the police essentially means reallocating, these bloated police budgets into other areas like mental health. And I've covered several stories around this, of course, throughout the years. Some examples here that I will link to below this video on YouTube. Cops shoot autistic boy during mental health call. Philly police kill black man having mental health episode. Cop steps on woman's head during wellness check. Cops break in, kill elderly man during wellness check. And police bring 23 cruisers to evict single dad. Going to the bloated budgets. So these last three, by the way, all took place in Canada, which also, I believe, at least in these two cases here back in 2020, helped to likely inform some of the opinions around defund the police and the support of it, which I will show you in the initial poll that came out from Ipsos before the government commissioned a different poll. But the top line here from Breach Media, which I will link to the story below the video as well. Government poll tried to skew public opinion against defunding the police. Documents reveal Public Safety Canada, which, by the way, is led by Bill Blair, former Toronto police chief, also giving an indication about where the feelings are on this issue from the Liberal government. So in consultation with the RCMP, manufactured lower support for the defund the police movement. So a quick breakdown here on some of the facts before I get into the questions that they helped to manipulate. So this was commissioned by Public Safety Canada. It was done by Environics, an outside research firm, for just over $100,000. And several of the questions were vetted by their policing partners, as they call them, including the RCMP, again, showing you what the intention of this poll was. And this poll was commissioned shortly after the Ipsos poll came out, showing large support for defund the police. So while Canadians, yes, divided in this poll, 51% in support with 49% opposing it, it's still a majority in support for an issue that was, fairly new to most people. So to see support like this is, for any issue really, is incredible. A majority of support for anything can be hard to find, but you have majority support here for defund the police. And of course, the generational divide here was clear. So a majority of Gen Z, 77%, and millennials, 63%, are supportive in this Ipsos poll of reallocating police budgets. A minority of Gen X, 47%, and boomers, 39%, are similarly supportive. So surprising, even from older generations here, large numbers here in support of defund the police. But that's why this poll was done. So in an initial draft shared with department officials in the fall of 2020, Environics suggested two questions. One would ask whether current police expenditures were, quote, too much, the right amount, or too little. Another would ask the level of support or opposition to three scenarios, which included eliminating the police altogether and finding a new way to address crime and safety. These questions echoed the perspective being articulated by the social movement then filling up the streets across Canada. Police don't make us safer or lessen crime, and, quote, a new way to keep communities secure is possible by defunding police in favor of life-affirming community and mental health services. Toward the end of 2020, departmental officials circulated the draft poll to various government bodies. Soon after, a senior policy analyst at Public Safety Canada wrote to Environics that two unnamed policing partners had taken issue with the questions about defunding. So this is what happens when you are consulting the police around questions around defunding the police. Obviously, there are going to be some issues with how they feel about the framing around certain questions. So more on that here. Following this feedback, the two poll questions were radically changed. Rather than presenting 3 defund scenarios, the question was modified to include 4 options for respondents: total, partial, or stable defunding, as well as increased funding. And instead of being asked to weigh in on different ways of addressing public safety, respondents were asked to choose between having the police do all the things they do now to protect public safety and a mix of social services with no clear connection to public safety. So in the revised question here, they attached public safety only to the scenario where there are police doing what they are doing now. They didn't attach public safety to the other options around increasing investment into, social spending and mental health services. They only attached public safety to policing. Again, pushing to skew how people may feel about the choices here, which led to headlines like this once the poll came out. Most Canadians, from Toronto Sun here, most Canadians against defunding police. This one from the Western Standard. Study, public says don't defund our police. Yet, interestingly, that's not really what the results showed. So this is the twist here. Despite having introduced pro-police bias into the questions, the full poll results, which Public Safety Canada quietly posted online a month after the initial coverage, show public support for defunding the police was in fact high and was misrepresented in the media coverage. The highest number of Canadians, 30%, supported less funding for the police or abolishing them entirely, while only 28% wanted more funding for police, contradicting what was reported by Blacklock's reporter. And while spending on police continues to rise in cities across Canada, a significant number of Canadians, 27%, supported a budget freeze. So even though a plurality of Canadians in this poll, 30%, supported less funding for the police or abolishing them entirely, and 28%, lower than 30%, wanted more funding for the police, the way the media, and to be fair to them, I guess, the way that this was pushed out there initially from Public Safety Canada to the media was that they were not in support of defunding. So that's how it was initially reported that, oh, look how low this number is. Yet when you compare the number, that 30% number, to the other number, clearly more people want to see defunding or even abolishing the police. But this goes to show, I don't know, maybe don't trust government polling generally, or if you're going to look at government polling, look into why it was commissioned, what the questions were. And this is an issue I've discussed before. How questions are framed is everything. So I discussed this in relation to Medicare for All, polling around Medicare for All in the US, and how results there vary wildly depending on how you ask the question. Because if you don't give people the proper information in the question, they're going to think, or if you skew it a certain way, like, do you want the government to take over healthcare, then that's going to have less people in support of Medicare for All than if you are to say, hey, maybe, do you want to have healthcare free at the point of use, eliminate copays, eliminate out-of-pocket expenses, and cover everything, including even dental, in Bernie's Medicare for All plan. So the way questions are written completely dictates the results you get from polls like this. And I mean, this is an example of that. But even in their attempt to skew the results, a plurality of people still came out in support of defunding or even abolishing the police.